important for us to get the same information out in this first go round, have all the same information, and not information that changes from session to session to session. So it's this, you're hearing the same information that people have heard in the past. You have in the prior session. I am going to divert a little bit because some feedback that I've been getting since, I think would be really helpful to try to explain a little bit to you as to how this has come about. So Swiss Fair and the Downtown Business Council have been involved with the concept of a social district, which is not our vernacular. That is straight out of the legislature. That's what the legislature has called this program that they incorporated into House Bill 890, which passed back in September of 2021. So I just want to be very clear, it's not trying to be some smoke and mirrors here, trying to call it something to make it confusing. This is just what the language is out of the legislature. But what happened back in, I want to say it was probably around June of 2020, right after we moved into phase 2 of the reopening of the state. A gentleman had come into Danny Batten's store and he was asking Danny, and this is a question that Danny gets almost on a daily basis in his store. He was asked the question, can I take this drink and go on to other shops and do some more shopping with my drink? And I think that comes about, that's a little bit different. But Danny gets that question, the restaurants don't get that question, because Danny has a small bar set up actually in his business. With a circulating buyer. And then Danny said, no, you can't do that in New Bern. And then this gentleman was telling Danny that in his hometown of Hamilton, Ohio, they have what they call there a DORA district. And I don't really know what that stands for exactly, but it's essentially an acronym that represents that it is a beverage district where people can take their beverage, they can walk around in the streets, and then for participating businesses that don't have an ABC permit, they can go into those businesses with their drink. And so then Danny was really interested in it. He started doing some research. He got in touch with me. I did some research. Danny reached out to the North Carolina Merchants and Retailers Association, which is a lobby. One of their jobs is a lobbying branch in Raleigh, and I reached out to the NCPDA, which is North Carolina Downtown Development Association, which is the lobbying branch essentially for the cities across the state, primarily for the Main Street communities across the state, but not the state, but not exclusively to that, because Main Street, of which I'm the Main Street manager of the city of New Bern, the executive director of Swiss Fair. Main Street falls under the umbrella of the Department of Commerce in the state, and obviously the Department of Commerce can't do lobbying, so the NCPDA is the separate organization that does lobbying efforts on behalf of Main Street communities and other cities across the state. And from there, these lobbying efforts led to a bill being proposed, and prior to the bill being proposed, Steve Tyson had been approached as being one of the co-sponsors of the bill. He came, he met with myself, with Danny, with with Kevin, Danny, Melissa, and some of the downtown businesses to talk about possibly being one of the co-sponsors of the bill. What did everybody think of it? He felt encouraged, came and visited with us 2 times, and then decided that he was going to go ahead and co-sponsor that bill. So that's where we're at. Melissa will go into a little bit more of that during the presentation. As far as the timetable on that from the very beginning, when we first learned about the DORA district, at the time that it was passed as a bill that was statewide and eligible for any local municipality to form their own district, we were talking about a period of about 15 months that went by from beginning to end. And then in New Bern, we put together a business committee, because this is a business initiative here in New Bern. It was a business committee that was put together as of December of 2021. And the recommendations that you're hearing today for a potential proposal and to get your feedback is as a result of this business initiative and this business committee being formed. The city has not been involved with this in any way. There have been times where we had some questions that we needed a little bit of answers on, but they have not been involved in this in any way whatsoever. So at some point, after we review the input that we're getting from the public, figure out how that needs to be, some of that information needs to be incorporated into changes for this district, then we will go ahead and put a proposal before the Board of Aldermen. And we're not sure what the timetable is on that at this point in time. There's other work that needs to be done clearly based off of the presentations and the feedback we've been receiving so far. Just see if there's anything else. Oh, one last thing. Since there have been at least, I would say at least a third of you who have sat through at least one presentation so far, I would ask for those of you that have had an opportunity to speak at other presentations afterward, that you would please wait until people who have not had an opportunity to hear this information has had an opportunity to ask their questions before you get up and speak. Because a number of you have had at least one, maybe two opportunities to express your concerns, which we greatly appreciate, but others haven't had an opportunity yet. So we ask for that to be respected, and appreciate that. So I'm going to pass this over to Melissa. She'll go through as this has been presented in the past. Again, we're looking for feedback. There will be changes, so just bear that in mind as Melissa goes through this information.
Melissa?
Yes.
Are you going to take questions after the presentation?
Yes.
During?
Yep, we will take questions after.
I would just like to comment, when you get to the questions, other than the two of you, if you're from TDA, Chamber, Shakespeare, et cetera, could those people be identified and introduced?
Sure. Well, I'll introduce myself right now. So I'm Melissa Ragle. I'm the Executive Director of the Craven County Tourism Development Authority. With me is Kevin Roberts from the Chamber and Lynn Herrickle with Swiss Fair. We are with Danny Batten as well, acting on behalf of the Downtown Business Council, have all been helping to facilitate and lead this committee that Lynn has been speaking about. You know, if you've been to the meeting, if you're with us last week, I apologize if you don't hear the same information in the presentation, but as Lynn said, we did want to make sure that we were very clear about being able to disseminate this to all of the groups fairly, and then we can take all of the feedback, mull that over. We're going to meet back with our committee group again. We still have not done that and been able to share any of the great insights that you all provided last week. So like Lynn shared, a lot of work to do. But for anybody who is new to this presentation and to what we are collaboratively came up with as a committee, the social district that Lynn shared coming down the pipe from the legislative bill that was passed in September, we have termed that and worked with our group on creating its own brand and fit for New Bern. And we're happy with the results of what we were looking at in terms of the promotional side of it. You can see we've had it up, but our neighborhood or our district that we were referring to is going to be the Bern district, which is the beverage, entertainment, retail neighborhood. So that's taking the place of the social districts language that was always part of our presentation, but I wanted to make sure to bring that to light. And we will move forward. Like I said, if you can't hear me, just let me know. And we will take questions afterward for anybody that has them. Everybody that has them, I should say. Okay. We shared the background, or Lynn did, about it coming from the Bring Business Back to Downtown bill. This was conceptualized, and it was to do just what it says, to bring business back to local business owners, independent shop owners, and this was done to also think in the resurgence of COVID. So it was done to help bring back, provide an economic insurgent or boost. And the committee bill, or the bill actually passed in favor, 95-8. And it was signed back in September, as Lynn shared. This also empowers the municipalities to create this district. Ours would be known as the Bern district, but for each individual municipality to create them based off of their own city's dynamic, fit, and collaborative conversations. The weekend street closures and the street cafes, they were so wildly successful during during the time of COVID. We've continued those, as you all know. We're continuing those on Friday nights. This is a kind of a natural progression into that. The bill actually came as a direct effect to expand businesses or dining's seating capacities without having them to increase their indoor capacity. So the outdoor dining was such a success throughout the state that this is kind of what has piggybacked and parlayed from that. What we also did, we did a lot of research and vetting throughout different states, throughout our own state. We talked to different counterparts. We also came up with a list and working with also the Main Street corporations. They provided kind of a set list of criteria to see if we would even be a good fit, if New Bern would be a candidate for this, or if we should consider it at all. The questions that we started with to frame this out was, do we have a walkable social area? Are there multiple social venues and restaurants and pubs and breweries? Do we have special events? Do we have a significant number of tourists and visitors? And is there a beer and wine culture? And I think if any of you have been out and about in our downtown streets or 5 Points lately, you can all say yes to for all of those. We certainly have created a high level of visitation, tourist traffic, community guest traffic. We have a beer and wine culture that is starting to be on the uptick. And we certainly have a walkable area in downtown and in the 5 Points district. So all of those we felt like we met within reason and more. Looking at a social district, there is also what are the benefits of one. This offers, social districts are created or placed to create a broad social culture experience for residents and visitors. This is just a different experience that a guest can take part in. It provides different options for guests who are coming to be outdoors, different social distancing options. It also encourages more visitors to stay in market longer, providing more walking traffic. The advanced interest in conventions and business development. So this was something, and we talked about this a little bit in the last meeting, but we felt strongly about this. This has been seen over and over in other states that have done this. Convention goers and people that are coming in for large groups and at our convention centers are staying in our hotels or staying in our bed and breakfast downtown and throughout the area. This is just, again, another amenity that they can take part in while they're here in market. So it's just something else that they can experience while in our downtown or 5 Points area. The opportunity for increased dollars spent in stores, eateries, and keeping people staying longer and dining longer in New Bern. That is pretty much the ultimate for us, the caveat being that the longer that they stay in our downtown and our 5 Points, the more money they potentially spend, the more visibility all of our stores, restaurants, and merchants get. We're keeping the interest here. There's just a lot of increased walkability. There are a lot of different benefits that we felt would support creating our own social district here. Obviously, we haven't modified based off of some additional concerns that you all were so great to give us last week. But the general concerns that we have heard obviously are centered around drinking-related issues. Underage consumption, public drunkenness, drunk behavior, and just general irresponsible behavior. That's probably at the top of the list. People illegally bringing or consuming alcohol that has not been purchased in the social district. That is another one. Our cup recycling, litter or waste increase, and conflicting events within the social district boundaries. All really great concerns. Like I said, we've had several others that were brought up, but these were the ones that resoundingly kept being talked about. A couple of solutions and things that we're doing to mitigate those concerns. And with me today, I'm going to call him out, but is Matt Knight, who is head of our ALE department here in downtown New Bern and 5 Points. But we have talked at length with our ALE office here about how we can, yes ma'am?
I don't know what ALE
I'm sorry, alcohol law enforcement.
Thank you.
Sorry. We have talked at length with ALE and with ways that we can, cut this off now, with ways we can mitigate any concerns, with ways after whatever is rolled out, we can do this the most manageably and, the safest precautions as well. Matt has also offered to deploy his agents during the first several weeks of this rollout to ensure that everybody is within compliance. They're staying within the boundaries of the district, that the restaurants are all complying with the rules and regulations. And that is also going to continue. Their commitment is also to certify and create programs for the restaurants and bars to kind of a train the trainer type of methodology. So they will be able to work with each restaurant, certify them, and then they'll be able to take that out or take that back to their own establishments. The plan and this presentation actually was shared with the ALE office with Matt Knight, who went through it at length with us and helped answer any questions or concerns. The big thing that we wanted to bring up though is that the laws that are in place now don't change. So if somebody gives a drink to an underage minor, that's still illegal, and that will continue to be. So these things don't get lifted within the district. They're actually more restrictive. There's more regulations around what you can do inside of that district, which you'll hear more about. But it was just really nice to also know and continue to work with our ALE office when we're moving forward on this, to know that we have their collaboration as well. The beverages that are purchased, we were talking about the cups itself. The legislation allows for up to 18 ounces for the alcoholic beverage from a guest or a patron. The committee, we've talked through this several times, and we felt that 12 ounces would be sufficient. The 12-ounce cup that is purchased in a restaurant or a bar or an establishment with an ABC permit would also have to have a timestamp on it and a date, and the restaurant or the place where it was purchased, it would have to have an identifiable logo or sticker on that cup as well. So that is how we're going to be able to keep compliance with who's selling what, when. If somebody who is walking around downtown is underage and has a cup like that, there's a lot of steps that are going to be taken, a lot of layers to this. The cup itself is going to be disposable, and it's going to be compostable. So that was another big concern, was the cups, the litter. And then the biggest was just overall concerns with trash. And while I know that has been in discussion, that's something that's also not necessarily a social district's issue. That was several conversations around that with the Chamber and Swiss Bear and Downtown Business Council were already in place. And they are going to be committing to the purchase of 15 to 18 additional trash cans west of Hancock Street into the 5 Points neighborhood. So that will, again, just another way to mitigate some of these concerns, but that, if I'm not mistaken, is going to happen and take place regardless of the districts.
So what we found is we know that downtown, just this core district, is deficient on trash cans. So that money's been approved to be spent, and those purchases are going to happen. As to what we do west of downtown, that really will depend on what comes out of these districts. But if we go into those areas, we do know there will be more trash cans needed. And between the Swiss Bear, the Chamber, and the city, we're going to put together the money to provide those trash cans. Is that?
One of the other events or the concerns was about events that are already taking place. We know we have tons of local events throughout the year, and there were concerns about the social district or the footprint kind of encroaching on that and the boundaries around the events. And we can modify or lift social district rules or the ability to do that at any time. So any festival or any other event that's taking place, we can also go back and, as on request, make modifications to the footprint of the social district. So it's not as if once it's down and it's in place, it's set in stone and it's completely permanent. We can make changes to it based off of different events that are taking place. The experiences, we relied a lot to begin our process and begin our research with the committee and talks with the committee on past precedent. So we talked to other states, other cities, other destinations. We spoke to presidents of the chamber, other TDA directors, Swiss Bear, their Main Street managers, and we got as much input as we could before moving forward to see if, were these successful in other areas, or were they throwing them out and having a lot of issues. And we found that over all of them, it wasn't just one or two, anybody that we spoke to and all of the test cases that we were hearing and being shared and being a part of in webinars, they saw minimal to no increase in crime, 911 calls, destruction of property, or hospitalizations from the start of their social districts. Increases in both tax and merchant restaurant revenue. They were also reporting, they conducted trial periods and continued to grow their districts during those periods. So, for example, they would start at a certain time and then they would increase that time each phase or however long they were doing that. We also were being told by several people that they would start with a small footprint and end up expanding, adding additional merchants, adding additional real estate to their district as they continue to have success with it. At least 50% of customers use social districts while waiting for tables or walking with drinks after dinner instead of sitting at their tables. So that was, we're looking at, restaurants benefit, the restaurants gain from it, and Chris or any of the other restaurant or bar owners in here can speak to this. We have a lot of high volume and a lot of turnaround on the tables could be helped and increased by somebody being able to do this and take their drink to go. It would help free up and, like I said, turn around those tables a little bit faster. Here are samples of other states that are currently utilizing and taking advantage of the incentive or the initiative to create their own social districts. And then here in North Carolina, these are the cities that are in green are the ones in the social districts have already been executed, and the ones that are listed are the ones that are in process. Several of those folks who are in process we've also talked with as well as they're kind of working. Some of them are in committee meetings and things like that, but they're all making strides to move forward with theirs. Actually, after last Thursday's meeting, saw on the news the mayor of Kinston was on talking about being excited about working with his groups and his committees to create a plan for Kinston moving forward as well. How does it work, which is what we would be communicating and sharing with all of our guests. Once you order your adult beverage from any of the participating businesses, they would, again, need to be within the defined Bern district. Those would be set boundaries that we call it the footprint, wherever the footprint is that we ultimately identify. Anywhere that any of the participating restaurants or bars that are within that defined district would be able to sell the adult beverage to the patron, and it would be in an identifiable cup. The cup itself, again, would be recyclable or disposable, and it's compostable. And the identifiable piece to that cup is creating something that is going to be one that they can't duplicate or one that you couldn't take from your house. Also, in talking with the group, we thought, and hearing from some other test cases, that if we did something that was a super bright color, just kind of a very different than what you would see, then it could also help with, in terms of law enforcement or police, if they're on the other side of the street and they see somebody with a bright orange cup, that's very identifiable that they're participating in the Bern district and what they have in their cup. So those were all things that went into play when coming up with this. You can enjoy strolling through New Bern in the Bern district, exploring, shopping, just taking in the sights. The concept itself is also to create this and to be very family friendly and very welcoming for all patrons. It's not event based. It's not some place where they're going to be there's a date and time where it starts or during that specific day. I mean, this is they can go through the day, the afternoon. They can throughout that boundary. And then discard their cup in the trash can, several of the new trash cans within that district as well. Rules and regs, the drinks must be purchased in the official cup. Like as I said before, all of the cups, once you get your drink, will have a date and time stamp on it. This is by law, this isn't something the committee came up with, and it would also have the restaurant or bar's logo or sticker on the cup as well. The visitors can stroll through that Bern district. What we worked on at length was identifying when we were thinking that would be the best times for guests and visitors to take part in this. And we also heard from all of the other successful states and cities that if you keep it as simple and straightforward as possible, you create the least minimal level of confusion or change in times can also create that where people are not understanding when things are happening, where you can offer it to one guest, but then you have tourists and other visitors that come in on a Sunday or Monday that can't take part in it. So we were keeping it as consistent as possible and as straightforward and doing 7 days a week. The other thought process behind that is that if you do it like a Thursday, Friday, that had also been suggested, or Saturday, that creates an event mentality. So that creates this thought that there's only something going on during this time, and so people kind of come out and drive out for it. This is not what the intention behind this. This is something that the guests that you see today leaving the Chelsea to walk out and walk around with their families or on spring break. This is not something that we're creating where you have a minimal time and they have to rush again out to do this. This is something that, business as usual. So the same guests you see in the sidewalks would be the same guests that we would be sharing this communication with that could take advantage of this incentive. The times would be noon to 9. It was kind of an easy marketable time. We looked into this, the rollouts in all the other cities. Not that we have to do everything as other places are doing them, but we also are looking at what has been successfully done. Noon to 9 was the time that the majority had set out for their district. And when I was saying before how some of them had changed the footprint here and there, we had a couple who actually had requests from their law enforcement in their cities to change and lengthen the time. They had started at 6 and they had actually asked to go ahead and just make it 7 days a week and do it until 9 or whatever the rest of the time was, because then you have people trying to police each other, and you have people were calling at 5 o'clock and saying that this one was doing this, and so they were changing the days and times. So again, it goes back to the consistency. Just keep it the 7 days a week, the same time, and then you don't have all the confusion and you don't have people trying to interpret the times and the rules and regs. The merchants that will allow New Bern drinks to leave their restaurants, like I said, it's anybody who's participating, you don't have to. If you're a retailer or a restaurant or have an ABC permit, you are not required to participate in this. This is completely a voluntary program. But if you are, then we have several different looks and logos and things we've come up with the beverage-friendly logo displayed on them. So if you are participating, you can put that in your windows to let guests and patrons know. If you do not have a decal or you do not wish to participate, that is perfectly okay. We can have some created that say that. If you're a merchant or retailer who already doesn't allow food and beverage in your stores, then you continue that communication. It's not something that anybody would be forced to do or forced to comply with. The other piece to note is that nobody participating in the Bern district would be allowed to carry a beverage into another restaurant or bar that has an ABC permit. So you cannot create your own bar hop or bar crawl. You cannot leave the Chelsea and go down the road and go to MJ's with the same drink. You'd be asked to discard that. It's not made to go in and out of different bars. Again, the intent behind it is to keep you in market and walking around and entering into retailers or shops that would allow it, but the law does not allow it for you to walk into another establishment with an ABC permit with your drink in hand. Of course, again, the proposed hours are the noon to 9, 7 days a week to keep that consistency and create as little confusion as possible. This would be serving also several different, we talked about this in the committee as well, several different publics. So we've got the local community that comes out, we know, just like Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We have visitors that come anytime during the week. So this would really allow anybody to be able to take advantage of it. The proposed footprint, which would, again, this is a work in process, and this was, the first vision that the committee has come up with. And some of this was also done through requests, different groups calling and making sure that they were a part of this. But Neuse River to Hancock would be the start of that, and then the Trent River to Broad Street. And that would eliminate, or actually the exceptions would be Council Bluff and Union Point Park. And then you'd have South Front Street to include Bury the Hatchet and Lawson's Creek, or Lawson's on the Creek, excuse me. And that is the restaurant inside of the History Center. And we also have Pollock to Queen and Broad to Forbes. And I've got a map that shows, and I apologize for the look of the map, it's not as tech, but we've got that too, so you can kind of see a bird's eye view or a high level look at it.
And so could you also explain how the boundaries would be marked?
Yes. So Lynn's question was how the boundaries would be marked. And we have thought a lot of different ways of doing this. So we can use sidewalk decals. We can use additional signage. We already need some, what I feel from tourist hat, some signage with maybe some walking maps. And so this could be a good opportunity where we use some, very nice, well done walking maps that can also outline the Bern District boundaries and have those strategically placed throughout downtown in 5 points on lampposts. We've talked about using the actual trash cans to have messaging on them. There's a lot of ways that we could do that, but we would have clearly marked signs to put those boundaries in place so that any guests walking around would be able to know when they've entered a beverage zone and when they are leaving one. And then, like I said, this is the high level look at some of those roads that we just talked about. And it will share, again, you'll see it's, all one larger district. And this is also what's done by design, and the original plan with this was to, we know that downtown has kind of a different feel, unique feel. We want to include and create connectivity for the 5 Points neighborhood and for the uptown. We're starting to already market that neighborhood and that community as another asset, another tourist attraction. There's really great businesses down there. There's a lot of great culture. There's becoming murals and outdoor art. So that's already in process. So we felt like this was a natural step to make sure that it's included in this footprint. And that, we've got a few different businesses that are from the 5 Points neighborhood that are also serving on the committee. And then we had several retail and hotels and bed and breakfast and merchants that took place on the committee as well that helped to create and firm up this plan. Again, I will say that this was just an initial 3 meetings. We had this plan going. We feel like it's a really good start. But we heard tremendous feedback and insight from you all last week. That was not unheard. We certainly did hear it. We certainly did take it back, but we have not even had a chance to meet with our group yet as a committee to go through and modify anything or to share and talk about any of the insights that we did hear. And we feel that while we'll continue to do and work on that, there are a lot of things that you brought to our attention last week that are very concerning that we also want to work on in the same time. There are things from, I think, obviously, again, TDA hat to Chamber to Swiss Fair that, we didn't know and that we didn't realize maybe to what degree or what level, but either way, we want to be good community partners and take steps to address those concerns and fix them immediately. That needs to happen. And that, again, those are concerns that are outside of maybe the social district, but regardless, we need to work on them. And we appreciate all of the feedback and all of the insight that we've been given. And that said, that's the end of this part of this. But if you've got questions, Kevin's going to be a moderator, and we can take it from there.
So before we do that, I'd like to say something that's more from the heart than anything else. Been a lot of talk about this topic, particularly when did it get started, and who is this being proposed to? This proposal is to you. And we're doing that now. We've done all of this by a timetable that was very deliberate. Yet her very livelihood and mine and Lynn's really does depend on New Bern moving in a very good direction, continuing to move in a very good direction in different ways. All 3 of us, like with you, but in a different way, we lose if New Bern goes in the wrong direction. We don't feel like there's a whole lot of margin for error. We talked with so many communities that have these districts, first out of state because there weren't any in-state, and now since some have opened in-state, we've talked with them. Had we gotten anything negative in terms of not just gut feeling, but in terms of data, increasing crime, increasing this, increasing that, decreasing that, anything like that, we wouldn't be standing here. This is not something we're trying to sell to you. It really isn't. The state made this available to municipalities for the purpose of economic benefit. That's a fact. The state made it available for the purposes of economic benefit. Primarily, bring business back to downtown, but it's our downtown, but we also feel, I very strongly feel, that if we're going to talk about doing something that's for economic benefit to these regions, we've got to at least allow for 5 points to be in that discussion. Is this how we accomplish that? I don't know. I don't know whether it is or not. But for us to talk about economic development, economic benefit, the opportunity to have economic gains, we three felt that you had to include 5 points in it. So that's kind of how we've gotten to this kind of weird little design here. But I hope each of you, as you look at this and as you question us, you'll realize that we're kind of all one group here. This is not selling you something. This is an idea that's out there. Markets all around us are doing it, at least talking about it. So we need to be talking about it. Questions?
We're asking people who haven't had opportunities to speak in other sessions to have the first
On that
opportunity
note,
today.
that's exactly right. And
So it's
we'll
not
give
open
you,
for-
but I will
He's
say,
asking for other people to have the first opportunity.
the information that was gleaned from last week, I couldn't be there, that was eye-opening. And it is now part of this discussion. Some of what you told the group last week as to how things are sometimes downtown at night, that's now part of this discussion, very important part of the discussion. Yes, ma'am.
Because it's a little fuzzy, can you tell, can I actually step up for a second?
Certainly.
So I can hear you better. This line here.
This?
Yes, what street? is it?
Hancock.
Okay, that's Hancock. So the next street over is Netley House, so that would be excluded?
Correct.
Because I live on Metcalf, and I'm local, I'm from New Bern. I'm neither for nor against this. I had no information, so I don't have an opinion yet.
That's what we're
Just
doing.
want to let people know, I don't have an opinion yet. But over time, with more bars and restaurants that are downtown, you obviously have more people. And we have a constant ongoing problem with people throwing their trash. They've even addressed that. We have a white picket fence. People all of a sudden feel like they're not downtown anymore when they see that. And so we get all the trash on a daily basis. And you get a lot of theft. I mean, I've had wreaths stolen off my gates simply because somebody thinks probably that that's a lark or something like that. So there's a lot of issues with that because not everybody's good time is somebody else's good time. And that is a residential district as opposed to more mixed use. So I was wanting to know how you were going to deal with the residential issue compared with more of the commercial issue. And plus so much is mixed use. Our block just happens to be strictly residential, so that's an issue. We do end up with a lot of the people that are intoxicated, with vehicles vandalized, things that are stolen. And it doesn't get reported because with the police department, if it's valued under $500, they don't write a report. So that ends up not going into statistics of, oh, we don't have a lot of problems with theft. You have more than you think you do because it's not being reported.
And that's what was brought out last week.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. That's got to be addressed.
And just about, I can't tell you how many times we've had people lying in our yard that can't sit up, or how many times they're beating on our door at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning because I can't find my car and you've got a white picket fence, I'm in some weird neighborhood is what they think. And my husband has to go and say, buddy, stand on the corner and I'll call you a cab, but you cannot throw up on my porch anymore. This has been going on for a long time. This hasn't just happened in
And that's bad.
recent years. And And that is
That's
bad.
bad.
But it's also not really addressed by the city because they think of it as being isolated. But I think what happens is, just like the theft, it probably happens more, and because people don't talk about it, you don't realize how widespread it is. But I noticed one of my neighbors is here, and years ago, I mean, we had somebody that just as a lark, they took spray cans, paint cans, and went all the way down the side of every car. So,
Well,
like
that's
I
something now,
said,
that's being talked about now, and it does need addressing.
so obviously, we're kind of in a wonky spot where everything's really commercial, and plus you have lots of events at Triumph Palace. So we're kind of sandwiched in. We're not like maybe some other neighborhoods on the other side of Broad Street or
Sure.
something. So having not gone to the other meeting, and I didn't see it in the presentation, how are you going to deal with the residential issue? And you've got plenty of preschools that are downtown now too. So how are you going to deal with that?
It's all good questions.
And you don't
I
have to
think-
answer all of
Yeah,
them.
and I don't have answers for we don't have answers for everything, but what I think we're realizing is that the input that we're getting from people, we're realizing the extent to these issues that are existing in the area, and it may be an opportunity because of the social districts being introduced or being talked about as being introduced, an opportunity to begin taking care of some of these issues that, you know, are being underreported, as you're saying, because it's, so there may be an opportunity here to not, I mean, I think it's always going to be, it's going to be very difficult to have 100% correction of these things.
Yes.
But if we can take that needle and move it so that significantly less of these issues are happening within the neighborhoods that are immediately adjacent to the downtown, then everybody's going to have a better experience. You are, as homeowners, and our visitors that are coming in from out of town will be having a better experience as well.
May I ask a quick question about definition? You say it goes to Hancock Street. Does that include both sides of Hancock Street or only the east side of Hancock Street? Like the MSD stops
I don't think
on
that's
the east side and the west side is not in the MSD.
That's a good question. I don't think we said that it has to be, include the west side. And the Bear Hatchet side. But that's just.
That's on South Front Street.
Right.
Yeah.
So it does have, both sides are included.
Yes, looks like the whole area is included.
Yeah. So I was envisioning that it was going to be the MSD side of it.
Right.
Yeah. Which would be the.
Yes, to your,
Yeah, which would be the east side of the street, not the
Yeah.
west side of the street.
Not the west side?
Yes.
Okay, only the east side.
There are the hatches on South Front Street.
But
So there's a line that goes down South Front Street that would include Bury the Hatchet, and that's there as well because Lawson's on the Creek has, well, actually Triumph Palace has requested that Lawson's on the Creek be part of that.
So
Yeah.
that then goes to Metcalf.
Yes, and that's dead
Yeah,
ends.
that's exactly right.
Yes.
That's why Palace.
correct. Yes, sir.
Two quick comments. One is, you talk about, I've heard this a couple times, this being a
Can we ask
family-friendly.
questions, as people asking questions, to please stand up, it'll help with the
We
volume.
can't hear. Yeah, you've talked about this being a family-friendly. I'm just having difficulty finding family-friendly people walking around with drinks in their hands. So that's just a comment. If you're 21 and buying a drink and you're with your children, there's something going on here. So that's one problem I have. The other is, when you get west of Hancock, until you get to the three specific places out there, it is virtually all residential. And so moving from there out to there, you might as well move it 6 blocks north, you might as well move it 6 blocks south, because they're all in the same situation. So I have a real problem with that. And the technical question I have for you, they talk about, yes, you can carry a drink. The other one is, people can have more space outside, I'm assuming for restaurants. Do you have to be a social district in order for that to happen?
For what to happen? For the restaurant piece?
We now currently have people opening space on the streets for restaurants. If we don't have a social district, can that still occur?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
that's
So
just
you-
the street cafe.
Okay, just so that's
Not
really
impacting
clear.
that.
We don't
Yeah,
have to
that's-
do the one in order to do the other.
Correct, that's correct. And House Bill, the same House Bill addresses that, because that was a temporary initiative
Mhm.
during COVID to have the extension of the ABC permit go out into the street. And the same House Bill has that being a permanent thing, where they don't have to do anything different.
Nelson.
I'm correct about that, right, Matt? Okay, thank you.
Nelson. Nelson.
Yes, I think from what has already been said, a lot of the concern is probably coming from residential rather than business people. And if you look at that footprint, there actually, I think within that footprint, many more residences. I tried to count earlier today in my head, which is not the right.
You're talking here?
There's 250 addresses.
But there are many more residents than there are businesses. And so my concern, so the statistics that you've shown from other places, and also within New Bern, whatever statistics we got, and we need to make sure that, since I believe that a healthy downtown residential district is as important for the economy of New Bern, we don't want a situation where people are moving out. So I hope that there's some formalized process by which the residents can be polled and that input can be put in, because they are also stakeholders. They're not businesses, but they've invested, in many cases, quite substantially in downtown New Bern. So just in fairness, it seems to me that they need to be included in the process, and I think that's what some people have been saying. So some formalized process, and then more information on the economic impact, including the economic impact on residences. I personally think would be helpful. In other words, do residential values decline or increase, as well as the impact on businesses. And then the last comment, I don't trust anyone who will put good liquor or wine in a plastic cup.
So Nelson, let me ask you first, I'm going to follow up to you. When you talk about a formalized process to get the input from the residents, oh, you mean other than this, or in addition to this? Or?
Well, I would say in addition, if the driving force is the businesses, which makes sense, and I certainly want a strong business community downtown, but I also want a strong residential community. So since the initiative seems to be business-driven, I think it's especially incumbent to try to get input and data from other communities on the effect of the residents, property values, desirability of living there, because I think that's a very important, to me, a very important part of the formula. And we do have blocks of this district that have no commerce in it, zero commerce. So it's important to get the input, from those people as well, it seems to me.
The gentleman right in front of you, with the glasses, sorry, you had your hand up one more time.
A comment and then a question. You realize that you're proposing to change the entire persona of downtown.
It may appear.
Right now, I know when we came here, the thing that we loved the most is that it was a friendly, quiet neighborhood. I think that's going to change if this comes true. And secondly, and it's not a comment, it's a question, have you taken into consideration that you probably need more policing? I understand right now, the New Bern police is kind of like understaffed in the first place. So if we did take that into consideration, a lot more will have to be done, to make sure people don't step over the line. I'm not sure how that's even going to happen.
Sure. To answer.
And one more question. Will you be able to go to an ABC store, buy a bottle, and then fill it up? And how would you know?
Well, you can't do that now. You can't walk out with a...
How did you enforce that?
That law exists.
But you can't walk out the street with a drink in the first place, so it's easier to enforce. And, now than if you're going to allow people to walk with a cup.
We certainly will involve the police department. To your point about the staffing and all that, that's gonna have to be a part of the conversation. And just to be very, very clear, and this is what I said starting out, no, it is not our intent, at least, to change the feel. It's not our intent. That's why we're talking to you people, because we don't want to do that. And we've not heard that that has happened in any market where it's been done. Just speaking to intent there. Yes, sir.
I think it would be helpful to you all to poll the people who are here today and ask how many people would like to eliminate the middle section there that's all residential. How many folks in here would like to see that gone?
But before you do that, there are other parts of this that have to be addressed, like the park.
All right, one at a time. Ben?
Let's not try to answer all of these questions right now. I think that the asking of the questions is great, but this group right here is not going to be able to provide you with good answers, because the answers that you're being provided right now are purely from commentaries and from phone calls and stuff that they have gotten from other areas that have started doing this. The problem, Kevin, with the kinds of responses that you're able to give right this minute is these are anecdotal responses. These are not based on anything except comments and feelings about places. These are not the data that you're providing that probably needs to be provided should be empirical data that needs time for a community to understand. The time that they've had to implement these things in their own districts is not enough time for anyone to see the social impact or the impact on residences that may be occurring over a 5 or 10 year period. And that's what will change the tenor and the vibe of downtown Newbern. If that vibe is negative, you can't stand there and tell us that, hey, everything we've heard so far is all good, let's go for it. That's a naive way to approach acceptable feedback from other communities who have established this. Those communities have not yet had enough time to get valid data, empirical data, not anecdotal data. And what you're reporting now in your attempts to try to answer this immediately is anecdotal data. That's not the kind of data that will be supported for. So our expectation of you to be able to answer this satisfactorily for us, I don't think everybody here expects that. I think what everybody here is doing is asking questions that, yes, will need to be answered. But to expect that you can provide the answer right now, I think that's not realistic.
Two big folks on the front row have been having their hands up for either one of you go first and then the other one.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. My first one is, I need clarification on what you guys consider a 5-point district. What, on your map, what is the clarification?
So this went from the Noose down Broad, and it goes all the way taking in Broad Street takeout when you're looking on the Broad Street side.
So you telling me you're stopping at Broad Street takeout, but that's not 5 points. 5 points goes all the way down to 3rd Avenue. From 3rd Avenue back up to Queen Street, the historically 5 points area. Okay, number one. Number two, you said noon to 9 p.m. 7 days a week to include Sundays. Isn't there a law in the state of North Carolina, or am I mistaken, that liquor can't be served before 12:30?
Just after some time.
Say again?
There is a time limit on it, and we're going to stick to whatever that law is.
Okay.
And it's illegal to have liquor anyway. This has nothing to do with liquor. Liquor is treated just like cocaine and marijuana. Anywhere in the state except 4 places, and this is not one of them.
Well, if I have a cup,
Can he identify himself if he's going to answer the question?
Yeah, let's make sure we control how the questions are being asked so that we don't get a lot of ancillary input from other people. Let's
That's our ALE agent, that's why Matt was talking.
Well, thank you, Dan.
Well, please let him identify himself so that we all understand who this is coming from, and make sure that he's recognized to be able to address this man's question.
Very good, thank you.
Otherwise it gets out of control.
say again?
You go right ahead and finish.
Well, no, go ahead, man.
My name's Matt Knight. I'm Assistant Special Agent in charge of Coastal District for North Carolina Alcohol Law Enforcement, supervise 10 county districts with the agents in there. Also the ABC chief for Craven County. And I address these stores, the security, and all that happens in there, the sales, anything that happens with these businesses downtown are all my purview, is my job. And to make sure that they're in compliance with that is going to be my job as well. This is my community. I love these folks dearly, but I come and eat here, and Chris will tell you, business is business. When it has to be business, it has to be business.
Can you repeat what you just said about in response to his answer?
Yes, liquor cannot be served or cannot be consumed anywhere downtown unless it's an ABC licensed establishment or your residence. Period. That's
Inside.
it. Inside. It will. If it goes outside, the business will receive a fairly substantial fine, probably in the thousands of dollars, and the individual will be cited for public consumption or possession when not authorized. And we do that.
Is that in the social district as well?
That's 24/7, 7 days a week. That is all.
Okay, that being said, okay, on your map that you had, some of the places or some of the states, I've been to these areas, okay, and it's a bar hopping type atmosphere, okay, where I can take liquor in a cup from place to place. We've spent a lot of money branding New Bern as a historical family community. And if we change that brand, in my opinion, we're gonna hurt New Bern, okay? I'm not against change. I understand the law as it is written and why you want to do it. I understand. But we've made, as residents, I think we've made concessions for downtown to survive, and it's always about downtown. It's not about New Bern. I feel for the lady that lives on Metcalf Street. People, we don't have clubs down here. You know, you have restaurants that have bars. That's it. You know, so we need to be careful what image we're trying to portray for our city.
That's right.
Okay? Our city. Greensboro, they don't have residents where they picture this at. It is in a downtown area with clubs and bars. No residents. Okay? Because no residents stay downtown unless they're in a condo. The houses are on the outskirts. So that's stuff we need to look at, please.
I have a couple of questions about number one, the tax. You said it may increase taxes, and I wasn't sure about, are we talking about the downtown residents may have to assume extra taxes to support this? Also, we already have alcohol issues downtown. We found somebody who broke into our house asleep on our couch. I mean, you know, we find people who are passed out on the lawn, across the street, on the park benches where it should be family friendly, urinating on walls of residences, throwing up. And so, I mean, we already have those issues now. And I think we really need to work on addressing those issues before we introduce another avenue where they're more accessible and where they go to the bathroom. I mean, these are concerns for my family and for my home. But I just wonder, you know, how much of an impact is this going to have? Because we already are really dealing with some unfortunate challenges related to alcohol.
With due respect, you said that you're going to new direction. You know, you're trying to do that. Are you doing that with people half drunk and drinking on the streets? You said you will provide, obviously the owners will provide cups with tags and things that has a date. But what if I buy a drink from him and I just add something into that drink and I consume that business owner will be held responsible for that drink. No matter who added whatever into the drink, you know. If I was sitting in my car and I have a bottle, I just keep pouring the drink into that same very glass, how would you know? You will not go and check each and every person that, okay, he or she has a class which is valid for today, you know. There are very many things. Why we are going for the drinks? Why not for universities? Why not bring a university here so people can study and bring more people into here? Why not making water theme parks or some other things that can bring the crowd in here? You know, if you go to Gatlinburg, it's crowded. There's no way to even walk. They have so many things there, you know, and people go there. They travel for 8 hours and they go there and they spend days with spending money. They have fun. Why don't we do something like that?
In one small way, this is a sustainable initiative for, without having to put money in for infrastructure and universities and things that you're talking about. And I promise if you try to appeal to a university, they're going to ask for the drinking things. I mean, that's kind of what goes hand in hand with universities, unfortunately. And that's not the, well, it's younger, if I'm wrong, then I apologize, but I think we're trying to do is create an incentive for tourism and create an incentive for guests to come in that is outside of putting money in for infrastructure. That is something that we know that we've had really tremendous years in terms of retail and restaurants. We've all talked about that, especially in the last meeting. And you know that we're looking at ways that after the next year, because it's not sustainable to think that we're going to have record levels for the next year. So we're trying to add some additional value, some additional amenities or different experiences that we know other destinations have been doing. And the other piece, real quick, while some of the cities in the state of North Carolina have not had a lot of quantifiable time with this, we're also, you know, have that, and we know from the last meeting as well, we will put together better metrics and some info and some data for everybody's performance history. But other states that have had a rollout of this of longer than a year or so are where we're getting a lot of the performance history from too. And then just to speak about the brand, as the TA director who is also oversees all of the marketing and the branding and the promotion of Visit Newburgh to all of our tourists. I also oversee all of the promotion for the Retire program and the Retire Newburgh, the visitor guide. I 100% can tell you that there is no intent or any plan to change our branding to any type of a party or any type of an atmosphere environment. That's not what we are. You know, when you said that families couldn't walk around with a drink, I see differently. I see that there are guests that come in that do have their families or a stroller, but are managed or reasonably and responsibly walking off with a beer. That this isn't something where we're creating it for a certain demographic or a certain type of people, but many families are familiar and comfortable in a beer and wine culture, and it doesn't have to be a party scene. I feel, you know, there are a couple of our partners with the beer district that have done a really great job of creating a family-friendly atmosphere. Freshwater Brewery, Tap That, they've got all these open air places and cornhole and things without creating this you know, Key West or pub crawl feel. So I think those are the things to think about. And again, it's all going to come down to the marketing of it. And we are not going to change us from being the vibrant but walkable district and community that we are. That's not going to change. It's just going to be again another experience that these guests, the same ones that we've been marketing to, will have to take advantage of.
This lady right here, you have a question, ma'am?
Can we ask the person to please identify themselves and whether they're a resident or a business owner? It helps us in processing their questions. Thank you.
And including you, Melissa.
And who are you?
My name is Ben Bunn. I'm a resident of downtown Newburgh. I'm not a resident within the current definition as to how this is done. But I think it helps us when we're listening to someone's questions be more knowledgeable about why that question is being asked. Several people ask, who is that that's answering? Who are they? And we don't, certainly we don't know everyone in here. I know a lot of you in here. But it would certainly help all of us if someone could identify, I'm Ben Bunn, I'm a resident of downtown Newburgh, I don't own any businesses in downtown Newburgh, I have this question.
So last speaker?
It just helps. It helps us all understand.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
I pay taxes to the city of New Bern. I vote for the people who run for election in the city of New Bern, but I do not live in downtown. I love downtown. I spend a lot of time downtown, and for one person, I spend a fair amount of money downtown. And I don't want to see the character of this town change. And despite what your assurances, what I'm hearing is a bunch of cheerleaders for this new idea, because it will bring in money, and it'll improve the tax base. I understand that, and cities need to grow economically. However, I believe you're being short-sighted and naive about all this. Have you even considered how few public restrooms there are in New Bern? Folks walking around with beer need restrooms. If they can't find one, well, there's this poor lady with her front lawn. I mean, you know, one of the things that brought me to New Bern is the charming, friendly character of this town. If this lady has to put up a wall to keep people out of her yard so they don't throw up, that changes the character.
That's actually what we did. We actually had to put a fence up.
I didn't know that. If people who drink don't always act responsibly. We know this. The more they drink, the less responsible they get. I'm not against drinking per se. I am against making it too damn easy for people to drink too damn much. And the issue of a lot of the litter, the filth, I've been to New Orleans, I've been to Las Vegas, I've seen it. It's ugly. That's not the way New Bern looks now. But the restrooms are an idea that will have to be addressed. And I haven't heard that mentioned by anybody.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm also a resident of New Bern, and I have lots of questions, but one of the things that I think several people have mentioned is your information is really insufficient because there needs to be time study. There needs to be an analysis of the effect of these districts over time. And the point that was made that some cities do not have residential areas mixed in with commercial areas. If you're going to tell me that this city in Nevada has a success rate with this, can I compare that city to New Bern? Or am I comparing apples and oranges? I don't even know. So the statistics that you give would have to be comparing a very similar town to New Bern, because New Bern, I was at the mayoral forum the other night, and every candidate talked about the family-friendly atmosphere in New Bern. People come here and walk their dogs, and everybody pets the dog and asks the dog's name, and there are water bowls out on the street for the dogs. That's the atmosphere of New Bern. This is not. And you talked about this 12 noon to 9 p.m., 7 days a week, being the most easy to control because it's consistent. And then in the same breath, you talked about changing when there's an event like Mumfest or whatever it is. Ghost Walk. All of those events, there were people walking around with their kids during Ghost Walk at night in the dark. And right now, that feels like a safe thing to do. I can't see that happening when people are also walking around like this. And if you're going to say to me, well, we'll change the rules then, I don't understand how you can give the argument that noon to 9, 7 days a week is in place for the sake of consistency. That does not ring true to me either.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, so my name is Gabrielle, and I'm here on behalf of our owners at Drive IV Hydration and Med Spa. This is one of my associates, Kristen. Our owners personally are very excited about this initiative, and obviously I have no bounds to make any commitments or anything like that. but I wanted to give you guys some anecdotal evidence, if nothing else. So on that list, actually, I think it was the slide prior. Do you want to go back to that really quickly for me? Sorry, it was way back there. So that top city right there, Kannapolis. I am in North Carolina, born and bred. I love North Carolina. I was a Chapel Hill student. Absolutely would have lived nowhere else. I am from that top city, Kannapolis, right there. I've lived there for 20 plus years, and we have just recently introduced a social district. My sisters has all moved back there. Our family lives within 10 minutes of each other. It's a wonderful life. It's a wonderful place to be. I know that it is a suburb of Charlotte, so Charlotte is shaped like a circle, right? Kannapolis is right up there. There's people coming from Charlotte to drive to Kannapolis because of its family-friendly atmosphere, because of the coffee shops, because of the little things here and there. And I know it's scary. I know it's scary to change things and things like that. And I'm not saying that I am a resident expert on New Bern. I love this city. It feels like home. You guys are all so wonderful, and I want nothing more than to support you guys. And I know it's so scary to change things. However, in Kannapolis, I can offer you guys, we live 5 seconds, literally a block over from our social district and where it begins. Our family has seen nothing more than people investing into our communities, investing into marketing opportunities, investing into the housing market there. Literally, my husband and I, we're planning to move back to Charlotte so we can open our new location in Charlotte, and we're trying to be an active person in the Kannapolis market. It is very exciting, and Kannapolis and New Bern are very different. However, you guys do have that rich character of what North Carolina is. You guys have that rich personality that is in history of North Carolina. There was literally like the pre-president of North Carolina here, like a mile away. That's super cool. We have so much rich history here, and we're so excited to make this history further with you guys. And I do think there could be some more questions answered, like how do we police how many drinks you have, right? That is one thing that I could think of, like a punch card or I don't know, something. But there is still kinks to be worked out. And homeowners, that's really frustrating that you guys are having people wake up in your yard. I know personally, I wouldn't put a hammock out there. That's just an invitation. But it's very exciting for New Bern to be growing like this and to be attracting a different crowd. And I do apologize to you guys that that's happening. Yes.
Or it's not like
so the only thing that
how are they different?
So Kannapolis and New Bern are 2 very different places. New Bern obviously has the beach, things like that, but Kannapolis is right near Charlotte. So Kannapolis actually is a very historical society. I've been a member of their Chamber of Commerce for years. My family is very big in that area. And if you guys are familiar with the Cannon family, that's where that began. A lot of investment came after the social district came. So yes, I do agree. I don't know where she went. I do agree that there should be more things here. There should be universities. There should be community colleges. There should be extra stuff. But we need people here for that. And that is going to draw people to the Craven County community area and the New Bern area.
Kathy Adolph, you've been very patient.
Oh, thank you. I think Dottie had her hand up first. So you're taking me off guard, I'm not prepared. But fundamentally, I don't understand why this proposal is coming forward by 3 organizations with moving to implementation without talking to the people who have lived here for decades, or even a couple of years.
So Kathy, can I stop? That's what this is.
This is hardly that. We're not having, this isn't the kind of, this is a question answer. Sometimes we can ask extended questions, sometimes we can talk a lot, but that's very different from doing a data collection of businesses. I was glad to hear Bayleaf, the owner of Bayleaf in the front row who had to leave to go to work. The adjacent bar and restaurant to the Chelsea that Chris owns, they are totally opposed to this. So my question is, how many, I mean, because I haven't seen any data, I've heard kind of a cheerleading for this proposal. I'm wondering if there is a thought for collecting data from every single business and restaurant and bar owner in the CDBG. Let me just start with that, whether it goes anywhere else or not. Because I haven't seen that, and I don't understand how such a major plan, which I personally believe would change the social structure of this community and culture forever in a very negative way. I don't believe that anyone's saying it's not going to change this community to something that it is beautiful right now. We have an economic development. We have economic vibrancy here. In fact, today's Sun Journal just lists the additional bars and restaurants, for the most part, that are coming to our downtown. People come here to enjoy restaurants and bars. Danny Batten has said to me directly, there's no data to support any economic development. And there are plenty of people who I've spoken to, and I don't have any data, it's all anecdotal, who are not going to go into the retail establishments, who aren't going to go into Mitchell's with people walking their dogs, drinking beer and booze and wine. It is not, and it's the social cultural shift that is being proposed here that concerns me more than anything. And God only knows, I am not opposed to drinking. Anyone who knows me knows that well. And I've, as many of you, been around the world, been a lot of places. Each site has to understand who it is as a culture. And so having conversations, I don't think a couple meetings where most people don't even know that they're going on, quite frankly, is a data gathering anything. It gets information that maybe you haven't considered, but there are ways to do that, and it's creating such, I think, a divisive right now as I look at things. And I've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into the corridors that others, Swiss Bear, Chamber, and others have not walked in for a long time. And I'm glad that there's an expansion to the corridors of this city. But it's a big deal. I mean, I don't want to, because it's legal, doesn't mean we have to jump on a bandwagon. Abortion is legal. I don't have to have an abortion if I don't want it. It doesn't matter whether it's legal or not. And I really think that this, and I do think it is, in my view, pushing a sales, we're moving implementation. That's what I heard at the first meeting. We're doing an implementation plan without any of the people, maybe I misheard that, Lynn, but an implementation plan without really talking with the people who live and work here and support this downtown. And we're going to see more restaurants and bars.
Let me apologize. I chuckled, and that chuckle came out. Several of you now have called us cheerleaders, which the three of us, I wouldn't have called it that, but we spend so much of our day, let's smile, let's think about what's good, let's think about what can be, what not, all that gibberish. So I guess we do. It's a little offensive to be called cheerleader 3 or 4 different times, and particularly.
Okay, give me a different word.
So, but my point is that if and I want all of you to know, because our time is going to get short, if it has appeared that we've done this without people's input, I mean, we had to get something from the business owners first.
But even the bars next on Middle Street aren't part of the
conversation. I don't know. They live. I know who they are, but I don't know how to reach them. I guess I'm not trying to get in the back and forth. The idea was to give you something to look at, so you could give us the feedback that you're giving. That was the idea.
Can I have a comment about that? I didn't know anything about any of the meetings. I found out about this randomly about a day ago. So, and I actually called your office today about it because I didn't know what time it was or where it was.
These are the first true public meetings.
So that's just it. I don't think that in a large scale sense, I don't think let's just say the downtown public, residents and business owners alike, I think that they probably don't know as a whole, that it's a very small amount. And so I would think that me being one of them, I would have wanted to know and have a little bit more input than just a little public meeting. So that's why I had
But that's what all this is
so
about.
perhaps, as I
This is the
said to
start,
Lynn,
right?
perhaps maybe a survey sent to every place where somebody can comment. Not everybody likes to get up and speak in public, but they will often say things in writing and say it much more eloquently. So if they get something, whether it's their home or their business, but whatever address it is in this district,
Sure.
get their input like that, because that actually might give you some hard data.
Just to give some other folks a chance, yes, ma'am.
Sure.
Laura Leishap, 500 Block Metcalf Street. I prefer bourbon, so I am a drinker. And I have had drunks laying down in front of my house, and that's a block and a half off of Broad. Metcalf happens to be a big cutthroat. I'm thinking of the unintended potential consequences for what hopefully would be a minority of the population as part of the Community Coalition for Craven County Children. I'm very concerned with the idea of normalizing public alcohol consumption. Alcohol is a controlled substance for a reason. There's a portion of our population for whom it has very serious negative consequences, and they aren't all adults. So one of the things that I was trying to think of, okay, how do we at least minimize that? And what a lot of gambling houses do, right as you go in, there's a big sign saying, if you need Gamblers Anonymous, this is where you contact. So on your signs that say, this is a social district, one of the things you might do is put, if you have a problem with drinking, call so-and-so. Just like on tobacco products. If you're pregnant and you're drinking, you could cause fetal alcohol syndrome. Get help. Some way to address what will be the consequences for some people. And having worked with DSS and many of the nonprofits that are involved with children and families, those consequences have severe economic impact on our community as a whole. So this is not just isolated to the impact within that district, but it affects the whole of the city.
My name is Barry Stewart. I'm a resident of New Bern. Permanently, about a year and a half ago, I lived down here. I'm living here permanently now. I'm from New York. I think you're skirting around the issue when you're saying social district. It seems to me like a Mardi Gras. And when you have a Mardi Gras, the mentality of that person going to a social district is different. Once you introduce the alcohol, it's going to be a total different mix. Now, you say you made a survey. Whom did you speak to? If you spoke to a business person, they're thinking about money. You're talking about a homeowner, they're talking about their property in which they own. So you have to be more clear on what you're going to try to do. Because I hang out down here in town, and I know what goes on. But once you put more alcohol in a place, the mentality of the person that's going want to party, want to have a good time. And so many issues that the people brought up here you're not concerned with. Number one is bathrooms, alcohol consumption, people going to be falling out and all that kind of stuff. In New York, when they closed up off these streets and they tried to make a environment where these people and groups can have a good time, if it's not food and it's a party, it's terrible. And I've been out there and I couldn't even deal with this stuff. So you have to be careful on how you're going to do that, because you're going to bring in an element that is not really conducive of this quiet neighborhood. The quiet mentality, the family-oriented. I don't think anybody goes to Disneyland and family-oriented and drink alcohol. That's a different mentality.
We've got time for a couple more questions. question, just so everybody can move it.
My name is Brant Bills. I'm a 7-year resident of New Bern. I live in the Ghent Trolley Run area, but I go to the First Baptist Church. And I am here as their representative, and I'm also conveying information to Christ Church as well. So there's a large concern here with us. A quick direct question here to our alcohol fellow.
Yes, sir.
Make sure I understand. It will, even with this implemented, you cannot take a liquor drink outside of it. It's only beer and wine that can be taken in. Is that correct? Okay.
And that's already in place in the county.
You're right, but even with this, if this is implemented, it doesn't change that part of the law. It's
Right.
only beer and wine that can be moved around.
What I'm saying is, you can drink socially in the county already. This is already
Right.
happening in Craven County, it's just not in municipalities. So it's already happening in the area. I'm not for or against it, it's gonna be a lot of work for me.
If he puts some bourbon in one of these cups and that person walks outside, that he's broken the law even with this social.
Yeah, you get to smell the inside of my car.
So it's only beer and wine. Okay. Just be sure we understand that. But the question, the comment I want to make sure that is public, and when we've had this discussion off record. The three of you, the three organizations here that have pulled all this together, your planning committee, to use a loose term, is going to, from here forward, include other people involved, residents, the churches, some of the other retail. So this is, having been in business for a long time, this is too big a group to make any decisions. But we need to be talking about people to represent us in these planning groups that moves forward. Is that a correct assumption?
And I'll even take it a step further. But yes, to what you said, absolutely. We welcome people in this process. But, I mean, it's pretty safe to say that this group here is not in favor of any part of this. And we hear that. Sure. I mean, we hear that. So why are you doing it?
Please clarify now.
You asked the question, why we were asked,
but there needs to be we need to have some voice into this planning process, and we need to have some people that have strong voices that are willing to voice them here.
Completely agree. Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
and who can be part of that process. So,
Hi, I'm Dottie Corning. I live downtown, and I also have property within the district. My question is, if we are able to find a consensus, a plan, push this thing forward, are you open to a trial period, just like the other? And one of your screens I saw today, it said most cities conducted a trial period, then continued to grow their districts and increase the days and hours of operation. So are you open to starting small, slowly, simply, and doing it on a trial basis? I'd like each one of y'all to answer that, if you don't mind. Just quick, yes, no.
I'll start. I'm a yes. I'm a yes to that.
Yeah, what had been presented to us was kind of an initial vision, but we wouldn't do these if we didn't want to take this insight and then create something, a better modified plan. So absolutely, we want to take all of this and work, again, collaboratively, not just amongst our own organizations, but with the residents. And the insight that's been provided, like we said before, I mean, it's been just tremendous, and it would be super impactful. We want to use all of that. We wouldn't be good stewards or champions, not cheerleaders, champions, if we weren't, if we didn't do that. So yes, we want to do that and work and continue to work on this. It's a work in process with, I mean, no firm timelines in any way, because obviously you can see we have a lot of things to talk about, a lot of things to work with you all on. So it's just kind of continue to work and talk.
And just some evidence of that, if I could say, in one of our meetings, it was suggested that the district run from First Street all the way to the river. I mean, we're trying to be reasonable, and whatever it ends up being, yeah, sure.
I think it's quite likely that it will be something that we would be recommending that would be more of a phased in thing with certain periods of time and reevaluation. I think that's likely to be the logical approach for this. But yeah, I mean, myself, just speaking for myself, I'm completely open to having it be something that is that we can phased in and with reviews over certain periods of time to make sure that it's running smoothly and figure out where there's hiccups and where there needs to be corrections, and any of these things can be rolled back as far, just the same way they can be rolled forward.
We got 3 more people that have tried to speak, so ma'am, you go first.
Thank you.
And please try if you can, so we.
Sorry?
If you can, keep it all of kind of brief, so we're rolling.
My name's Corey Hunter. I live downtown, and I would like to know who is on the commission or the committee that is putting this forth.
We can get you that list. Off the top of my head, there's restaurants, there's retail businesses there.
What retail businesses?
I beg your pardon?
What retail businesses?
Mitchell Hardware has been part of the group as well, has been part of it.
And are there, my question is leading to, are there any residents or representatives of residents on the committee at this point?
Not yet.
I'm a resident. I'm on the committee.
Okay, good. There's one.
The strict resident.
My next comment, just briefly, should this move forward, I can't imagine why the hours would be from noon until 9. Comment.
Well, I'll just throw something out there. I mean, there have been conversations about having it be later hours, like starting at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon and going until like 9 or 10 o'clock at night. I would say as a group that was meeting, we felt that those hours encouraged the mindset of partying. Whereas noon to 9, it's just, you're starting it at a point in the day where you're not focusing on when people think about, you know, going out after work or, you know, having a drink, and just kind of having it be, I don't like using the word normalcy, but having it be a situation where it's just not an automatic assumption that people are thinking about having a drink or two more than what they should. Noon to 9 felt like we were taking that factor actually away as opposed to adding to it.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry. Yes, my name's Annalie Ash, and my family moved here 27 years ago. I've been visiting New Bern. My sister and I moved here permanently 5 years ago. We love New Bern. And so my question to you is just to protect New Bern. And maybe this was covered before I came in. But I'm just wondering who is, and I'm sorry, I'm just taking this to a worst case scenario. Who is going to hold the bond for this should some, God forbid, horrific situation happen here due to someone holding a cup or having a cup in their car? Not that the city gets sued for millions of dollars. You know, who is, not that everybody's taxes are going to go up or electrical rates are going to go up or whatever. That was asked of me and I said, I'm going to ask this question.
Matt, what would be rules now that apply to that person that's holding that beer in terms of liability?
Being held responsible for somebody getting hit by a car.
They would be now.
Should we not have Graham Shaw?
What's that?
Graham Shaw? Florida, whoever has served.
Is the last person responsible? I believe that's the
It's,
if we know.
yeah, it's investigations we do, we call them source investigations, because obviously the person that they're getting alcohol is a source. We're actually doing one now in a Spanish restaurant in another county. Guy left there, had on collision, he's dead, we're going to the hospital. We do these regularly because these happen all over the area, very enforceable. I mean, I'm named after somebody who died by a drunk driver. I lost a son to somebody being stupid and not doing what they're supposed to do, so it resonates with me. So with these, we'll go back and we'll look. We'll do those investigations. We'll go back, we'll look at video, we'll look at surveillance, we'll do interviews. We do it quite often. But you have to take totalities of everything that happens. We found a lady in a restaurant in Wilmington not long ago. She was 72 years old. She blew a 19. She was on the floor of her own bar. Problem, right? She had 2 drinks over 5 hours. She never drank. So They didn't serve an intoxicated person, she just didn't. And so we have to look at those totalities on how that happens when we do go back to do those reversals. And yes, there are very, very large penalties for businesses and individuals, and that's part of this class. Now, what they'll do is if something happens here at Chelsea, that individual, if they go to serve to an intoxicated person, will allow that intoxicated person to continue to consume. And they have knowledge of that person, or a reasonable person with their experience would have had the same knowledge. Then they are liable to $500,000 civilly, not just the criminal. And if it was here, what they're going to do is they're going to say, okay, this business is worth this, we're going to double it, and that's what we're going after you for the business. Those are called, they used to be called dram shop laws, called source investigations now, and we do them quite regularly. One thing I can say, and I'll be very quick, if this goes wrong, I'm shutting it down. I love these guys to death, but I'm going to do everything in my power to approach aldermen, approach mayor, approach businesses, and do everything I can if it goes wrong, because that's my job. I'm not for it, I'm not against it, but you know, this is my community as well. The second thing is, for those of y'all that are having issues with businesses, I don't want to say it in public forums, I'm going to wait afterwards, please come get with me and we'll see if we can work on it.
Mr. Bud, please.
My name's Ben Budd. I'm a resident of downtown. I'm here to gather knowledge to be able to make more informed decisions about how I feel about this issue. I know I've expressed to you before that my main concern right now is how I feel about it is with the open carry of alcohol that I don't see as a good thing for the town. But I have two other things that I'd like to offer. One is on zoning. New Bern, the downtown area of New Bern, is zoned. Those zonings are decided by a zoning commission who says this is what can be established in this zone. In the residential areas that butt up against the proposed zone that's being defined from the social district as you are presenting it now, for those residents who live in those zones, they have never expected anything like this to occur. They bought their houses, they live in these zones, they've lived in them for years. I've been a resident of New Bern for 65 years. I want to know what happens when you create this zone, this community zone that allows open drinking. What happens in those neighborhoods that were not zoned for that? Is this going to trump all the zoning? And that decision is going to be made by 4 hands that are going to be raised at an alderman's meeting, either for or against it? I want you to consider that. There are a lot of people. If there are 200 or 400 residences within this zone, there are probably at least 2 people in each one of those residences. That's 800, if my math is correct, that would be affected by this. They chose where they live based on what the zoning is at the time they purchased their homes. They did not expect something like this to come. So I think you need to really consider what this is like. My second point is this. If your plan, and as I've heard you say, Lynn, we want to wait until after the election before we propose this deal. I want this body of people here to hear from your mouths that this is going to be put off until the new elected Board of Aldermen are in place and have been in their places for sufficient time to study this thing much more than it's currently been studied. That this decision will not be made during the lame duck decision after the election, which is about 2 or 3 months before these new aldermen are put in place, because they are the ones, and the new mayor, the new aldermen are the ones that should make this decision, because they're the ones that are going to have to deal with any issues that come from this decision. So this board owes this group a statement verbally that this decision will not be considered until the new alderman and new mayor are in place, and they will be the ones that vote on it.
Point taken.
This is not the time to put it before the Board of Aldermen, and whenever it does go forward, you know, which we're talking months away at this point.
You may
I
be
feel
talking
very-
a year away.
It could be.
If
It
you
could
do
be,
the proper study.
But can I finish what I want to
Yes,
say real quickly?
please.
Which is that when it gets put before, it will not be put before as a vote. It will be put before them as a presentation, at which time I am certain that for the city to be able to consider this, the city will have to then take it out to their departments and have it go through the departments, for the departments to vet what the proposal is, and then come back, and then there may even be more changes at that point in time before it would go back to the Board of Aldermen for a final vote. So this is a process.
When this was said, when this was said that you're not going to take this before the election, are you? I mean, all we could do was chuckle. This thing's not ready. That's what.
Lynn and Kevin, I think the operative word here is what is the process for which a decision will be made for this proposal. Right now, I can tell you that there's a feeling among some of the people of New Bern that the process that has existed in the past on decisions is suspect. It is not, there's not confidence in the process through which decisions like this are currently being made in the way that our city runs its city government. So the question then being begged is, should a decision like this be decided by the raising of 4 hands in the Board of Aldermen? But, well, that's what I'm saying. I don't have an answer for that question. I'm just telling you that to please consider the impact of a decision and a proposal like this. And Melissa, I know that all the language that you wanted to put into this thing is going to be positive. But what speaks louder than words are actions. And whatever actions are demonstrated by a decision made like this to a community, whatever social impact is shown by actions within the community of people who are participants in this decision, that will make the statement as to what New Bern is or becomes, not what you put in the literature or signs or marketing material. So please give it more thought than just anecdotal thought and anecdotal
I would just like to make one other quick comment, which is some of you know who I am. Many of you don't know who I am.
Stand up.
Oh, some of you know who I am, many of you don't. I also live in the historic district. I also, like many of you, have put huge investments into a piece of property in the historic district. I have very similar concerns as to the rest of you. My life is downtown. I work downtown, I go to church downtown, I live downtown. So I take all of these points extremely seriously because it's my life and my investment here as well. And not just my monetary investment, but my personal time and investment. So I just wanted to express that because as we're standing up here talking to you, not all of you realize that I'm in a similar boat as many of you.
So unfortunately, I had an appointment at 3:30 that I've got to walk out to. I'm not dodging any questions. Everybody knows where my office is. If you don't, it's 316 South Front Street. I welcome, in spite of how it may appear, this is why we're doing these things. We welcome your input. We welcome your input. Trying to be as open as we can. I'm at 316 South Front Street.
We all are. We all are.
We all are.
Wait, or is it done? I have a question. I have a question.
I'm sorry, your hand was raised. Sorry. Ready?
parts of this question. One is this the last public input meeting?
It is for this go-round, yes. That means we're going to go back, we're going to meet, we're going to enlarge, we're going to add some people from residents and from the churches. We're going to review things, and then we will have some sort of communication, whether it's public hearings or some other way, some other manner to say what those changes are. Thank you.
Excuse me, wait, one more question.
Hello, folks. We got a question.
Right, according to the city's website, question, it says Swiss beer, and I'm not, this is just a pointed question, I'm not trying to, sound very direct. According to the city's website, Swiss beer is supposed to have a number of different agencies on your board, and two of them is the New Bern Development Services Department and New Bern Department of Public Works. Are they, you said there was no city people involved.
Yeah, first of all, that's old, incorrect information.
Okay.
Those departments. We do have, the city manager sits on the board and Alderman Ward 1, but they are not part of the committee.
But they're aware of what's been going on.
I report to my board.
Okay.
I report periodically.
One's representative here. Where's Sabrina Bingle?
She's waiting for the proposal to be put forth.
Why isn't she at this meeting?
I can't speak for her, Ben.
Oh my gosh,
I
it's
cannot
her
speak.
ward. This is a major issue for her meeting, so why is she not here?
I don't think that any of the candidates for Ward 1 are here at the moment.
Yes.
They were here.
Okay.
There's representatives from other wards are here. Why is Sabrina Bingle not?
That is a question to ask.
I've asked Sabrina Bingle.
I can't answer that, Ben. I can't answer that.
Thank you, Lynn and Melissa.